Meeting to order. First item would be adoption of the agenda. There is one late item that Councillor Price will be bringing forward, the appointment to the Comox Valley Cycling Task Force. We'll deal with that under late items. Any other matters to address? Seeing none, with that one addition, a motion to adopt would be in order.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. We have 4 delegations this evening. The first is Alex Turner and the Council of Canadians, and it's going to talk to us about the Canadian-European Union trade agreement. So, Alex, you have the floor. 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Ives, councillors. I think I've met most of you, but Mr. Grant, Ms. Swift, thank you very much for the time you've given us here to make this presentation this evening. I'm here representing the local chapter of the Council of Canadians, which, as you probably know, is an organization that's particularly concerned with Canadian sovereignty and resource issues. We're here to ask you to take action regarding the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA as it is known, being negotiated presently between Canada and the European Union. CETA covers all aspects of trade and economic development. For our purposes here, it is important to note that it will reduce or eliminate the right of municipalities or regional districts to specify local priorities when local money is spent on goods, services, or capital projects. This will also apply to hospital boards, regional districts, school districts, water districts, any local political authorities or agencies. Now, as you probably know, the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, UBCM, at the 2010 annual meeting passed a resolution asking, and I quote, for a clear, permanent exemption for local governments from CETA, unquote. But despite this objection and a further expression of concerns from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the negotiations pressed forward with no assurance that the interests of municipalities or any other local authorities will be protected. In the latest bulletin from Foreign Affairs and International Trade Canada, this is the words that I find in their latest bulletin. Quote, the parties are committed to resisting protectionist pressures in challenging economic times and are seeking to achieve an ambitious outcome across all negotiating areas. The Government of Canada has made CETA negotiations a priority in its international trade agenda, and negotiators continue to move the negotiations forward as quickly as possible, concluding in 2012. So I quote this to give you an idea of the urgency of the situation. Negotiations are in their 9th round. But really, no public or media discussion has taken place around the proposed treaty. So if you want to protect the right of the town of Comox to take local action in preference of local suppliers, you need to take action along with the regional district and other municipalities and authorities in this country. The European Union has made specific requests for full access to all levels of public procurement in municipalities, school districts, hospitals, and other public agencies across Canada, including core municipal services such as public transit, water service, and wastewater treatment. Here we come to the core of what we're concerned here. There are many other problems within this proposed agreement, but this is the part that really affects you. Under the proposed terms of CETA, your council would not be allowed to consider local economic development strategies in procurement decisions. You would not be allowed to restrict tender calls to local or Canadian companies or require that bidders use some proportion of local or Canadian goods, services, or labor. You would not be allowed to use procurement to support a market for innovative goods and services, including green technologies, if the effect would favor Canadian producers or to attract investment to Canada. You would not be allowed to use procurement for sustainable development purposes, such as promoting buy local food practices. all of these things you would be completely disallowed from doing over certain limits. So currently they're talking about a limit of about $300,000, and that would continue with inflation into the future. It means anything over that you would have to put to international bidding processes. Now, CETA would also allow the multinational corporations to put intense legal pressure on you and regional districts. Under the proposed agreement, unsuccessful corporate bidders would have the right to challenge your decisions, to challenge the municipality's decision in awarding the contract. Now, this could mean that you will be tied up with significant legal costs in regard to gigantic European corporations that require that you allow them to bid on local services. There's a real danger that local governments would have to compensate unsuccessful bidders if a court finds that CETA procedures and rules were not strictly observed. You may be required to prove that you have allowed them to bid. If you don't, they may be allowed costs against you. Many millions of dollars have already been paid out by our federal government on various legal suits that have been brought under NAFTA, under Chapter 11 of NAFTA, for similar purposes on the federal level. It's interesting to note that in NAFTA itself, municipal services are not included in that agreement. But there is a clause in NAFTA that says if in any subsequent trade agreements, these kinds of restrictions are placed on you, they will also apply to the signatories of NAFTA. That would mean you also have to allow American and Mexican bidders to bid on any of the things that you obtain. The federal and provincial governments have not presented to you or to the public an assessment of the impact of CETA on local governments. They have not offered any meaningful assessment of what municipalities might gain by abandoning their procurement rights, or what I would call your sovereign right to make decisions that benefit your local economy rather than buying from some international supplier. Well, given that the terms of this agreement will really affect local authorities, you would think that local mayors and councillors and regional district officers would have an opportunity to be involved with the negotiation process. But I don't believe you have. I don't believe you've been asked. And I don't believe you've been involved in the negotiating process. In fact, we don't know anything about this treaty except what has been leaked to the public from various sources. The first we will hear from this is when it is presented to the Canadian Parliament. We will probably have 2 days of debate, and then will become law. That is the reason why we're asking you to take action right now. Other jurisdictions are already taking action. 37 municipalities across Canada have already registered their objection to the terms of the treaty. And as I mentioned, the UBCM has in very strong language expressed its opinion about the difficulties of the treaty, as has the BC School Trustees Association. So we're really asking you to take 3 kinds of action here today. And if I can find the last sheet, I will tell you what those 3 are. Well, even with that, I can say, first, I would like you to request from the federal government and our MP and our provincial government details about this negotiation. Ask them, please, what are the implications for your municipality and why you haven't been involved in the process. Secondly, we have provided you with a draft of a resolution that you may pass around this that can be passed on to the government objecting to this incursion on your sovereign rights. And thirdly, we're asking you that you communicate with other municipalities, regional districts, and authorities about this matter so that we can create some kind of a groundswell of concern from Canadian municipalities to let the government know that this is something that we are really concerned about. This is really your sovereign power. In Europe today, we see what's going on, and it seems that this negotiation, which has been going on for a number of years, is continuing through a process of habit. Would anybody really decide to get into what, interestingly, the bulletin from Foreign Affairs and International Trade, it is entitled Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. Canadian-European Union. Would we really, given what's going on in Europe today, want to reach this kind of agreement? Some countries in Europe right now are threatened with the loss of even their own fiscal autonomy to the European Union in order to continue to be supported by the Union. Do we really want to get involved in that kind of thing with the European Union at this time? It's your autonomy, your sovereign right to determine that you can expend the taxpayers' money for the benefit of local taxpayers, local business people, the local economy. That right is being abridged, will be abridged in this treaty. So I think people of all political stripes need to be concerned about this. People, everyday people, business people, taxpayers, everybody in this room, I think this is a very far-reaching thing, and I hope that you will take action on it. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
Any questions from members of council this time? Seeing none, I thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. John Verrier from, regarding 62 Orchard Park and regarding development permit application DP 11-13. Welcome, John.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the town of Comox for considering the DP application in a eagle nest tree area.
John, could you just wait till everybody clears out? I can hardly hear you.
Soft-spoken John Verrier.
Yeah.
Once again, I'd like to thank town of Comox Council for considering this DP application in an eagle nest tree area. I'm here representing the owner of the 60 Orchard Park Drive. She intends to rebuild a home on the previous location. The previous house had burned down, and the owner has subsequently made plans to rebuild a home there. We have complied with most of the bylaws regarding an eagle tree nest area. And we have also retained baseline archaeological services to respond and look after the province's archaeological branch concerns. And we will be complying with the balance of the requests, the outstanding item listed as a list or a location of trees. And monitoring of eagle activity as per the report provided. If you have any questions regarding that, I'm here to answer.
Okay. Any questions from members of council? Yes, Councilor Black.
Thank you. I don't know if you're aware, but we recently received a letter from Comox First Nations on some issues. The one that they seem to be particularly concerned about is the archaeological survey. Can you indicate when they might have it in their hands such that they can review it?
I actually thought I'd have it for this meeting, but they needed more definite location of where the home's going. So, like I said, we've retained Chris from Baseline Archaeological Services, and he will provide a report to the planning department probably in the next week. So, and in my meeting with him and familiarizing him with the location, like I said, there was quite an expansive home there previously, and there was also a easement for a sewer line to the sewer property as well. So the area that we're looking at building the home is actually been developed previously, so it's just flat land. The area where the house was. So we were fairly careful to make sure that there is some mittens on site from the report. See shelves at the front of the property. We're staying out of that area, and we will comply with the whether it be a site alterations permit, and we proceed with them, or whatever the recommendations is from our consultants.
All right, any further questions? Seeing none, your matter will come up for discussion as the meeting proceeds. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again.
Next delegation is Hal Martin regarding the development permit application DP 11-08 at 2277 Desmond. Good evening, Hal.
Good evening. Your worship, members of council. Hal Martin, Baratheon Associates, we're the agent for Common Foods Holdings, which is the parent company of Quality Foods. This development permit application is to expand and formalize parking at Quality Food Store in Comox, to formalize it, develop it as very similar to the existing parking that's already on site. I don't know if you can see the plan that's in the reports. I've got a full-size copy here that I can go up there very briefly so you can have a quick look at it. But it's the existing store is here, parking around here. This is over abutting the patio homes next door here on their left. And basically, this area has been used for the truck loading and whatnot to back into the loading docks here. And this area has been used for employee parking for years, virtually since the store opened, in an informal way. This is just, they finally purchased some extra property, and this will formalize that parking for the employees and overflow parking for the customers during some busy times like the Chinese food takeout time, perhaps. I think it's fairly self-explanatory in the report. If you have any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, questions from members of council? Seeing none, again, your matter will come up for discussion later. Thank you. And the final delegation is Steve Anderson regarding the development variance permit application DDP 11-6 and development permit application DDP 11-10 for 1633 Cedar. And hang on for a second, Councillor Swift.
Mr. Mayor, I have to declare a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. So just a moment while Councillor Swift vacates the room. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. Your Worship, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for having us attend this evening. My clients, Brian McLean and Judith Moore, are present, and you have before you the application that we've prepared. I think in really simple terms, it's an application related to creating a new carport, which is a replacement, and creating a storage garage workshop for Brian and his automobiles. And the whole exercise really came down to trying to endeavor how to place them on the property with the least amount of impact in the neighborhood, protect views and all of that, as well as architecturally tie into the character of the existing home. And as my design rationale states, steep roofs, and all of that kind of thing. And as soon as we start to try to tie things together, we get outside the height envelope instantly. And the issue of the size of these accessory buildings really boils down to the fact that this property is an anomaly. It's a 3-acre parcel of land in the midst of a bunch of normal single-family dwellings and lots. So it really, and it's for all intents and purposes, this is very within. So it's about siting everything as close to the house as possible, creating an interesting courtyard, retaining, with the exception of one chunk of a big grouping of cedars, keeping all the trees in place, and protecting everybody's views, and having as little impact as possible. So we, I think, given the property is an anomaly of sorts, and we are at your behest, I guess, in terms of how we go with this, and hopefully we will find the application acceptable.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Any questions from members of council at this time? Seeing none, I know your application will be coming forward here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we do have minutes of the council meeting of January 18th for approval.
Second.
And on approval of the minutes, all those in favor? That's good. At page 19, we have the manager report for receipt.
Second?
And on receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any updates on that, CAO?
Your worship.
Okay. Any questions, member council, at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have at page 21, planner's report and recommendations regarding the off-street parking requirements for restaurants.
I'd move that.
For the third reading? There's second for that. Second, discussion on third reading. Councillor Swift, then Butcher.
I don't know if this is the moment to be having this discussion, but I'm fully in support of this action. But I would like to have an opportunity at some point for us to review it. Because we're doing this rather quickly, I'm thinking that it might be advisable to have an opportunity at some date in the future to see if it has been what we had hoped it had been. So while I'm in favor of proceeding with this at this time, I would like to have a provision on it.
Okay, maybe I'll ask CAO or the planner how that would work. We could put it on the manager report, I suppose, as one option. Is there any other options?
We could also tie it into perhaps our strategic planning process for review of this initiative plus other things tied to vitalizing the downtown.
Okay.
I think in terms of process, the motion itself, the third reading of the bylaw or adoption, shouldn't be conditional.
Right.
So those should stand alone as they are, and if council wanted to either ask staff to do an ongoing monitoring process or on a specific date, then that could be considered.
Okay. I think Councillor Fletcher and then Grant.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely supportive of the applicant for this issue. My concern would be, and has been all along, the notification to the surrounding businesses, etc. Speaking as a business owner, I know with the best of intentions, the BIA sent out a notice, which I received late Monday afternoon. So, as a business owner, I'm well aware of it. There are many others that receiving it late Monday afternoon would probably have been a bit befuddled by it all, and maybe I have not had the opportunity to truly digest it and provide some feedback. So perhaps the opportunity may come between third and adoption. I'm just looking for some comfort in allowing the community to express their concerns if they have to.
Yeah, well, we have received a number of emails and letters to this point, and certainly we could receive more before adoption. It is perhaps unfortunate you didn't get the businesses weren't informed through the BIA by Monday, because it certainly went out some earlier than that, at least to the BIA back on the BIA on the 24th. So we can only control so much, I suppose. But Councillor Grant, you're a rep to the BIA. I don't know if you have any more right to share.
Not really, except that the chair of the BIA went away on holidays shortly after that letter went out, so things got a little bit maybe got a little bit delayed on that thing. But I would think that before adoption, we would certainly hear from anybody, and that's not going to happen for what, a couple of weeks?
In 2 weeks' time.
In 2 weeks' time. So, we still have an opportunity at that point if we suddenly hear a bunch of outcry to make our changes at that point.
Sure.
If we want to. So I think that's covered. I also would agree with Councillor Swift's idea of having a look back at this maybe in a year's time and just making sure that we are on the right track and that we're not causing some sort of issue with it. I think that's a good recommendation. We should always do that anyway. So.
Well, certainly any bylaws we pass will be subject to ongoing monitoring, but this one in specific I think ties in nicely with our efforts on our downtown vitalization and strategic planning review. Of course, will ensue every year. So follow up on those things.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Yes. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'd just like to say that I do share the concerns that have been brought up about the time scale for comments to be received. But given that we will have another 2 weeks before fourth reading, I can, under that circumstance, support third reading. And I wonder if there's going to be a BIA meeting prior to that.
Yeah, Councillor Grant would have to answer that.
Don't believe there is, but the BIA has been really working hard to get their email lists updated, and I think that we're probably pretty close to having it the way it should be. So we can certainly make sure that a reminder gets sent out to anybody that has any concerns, and I'll phone Kathy personally, get her to do that for us, so we know that we're covered off.
Great, and I'm glad to see the letters of support that did come in. And I'd just like to say that the comments from the museum were from the curator, and it's gone before the board.
Okay. Councillor McKinnon.
Yeah, I think that continuing with a good relationship with BIA and BIA members feeling that they're heard, if we've suggested there's enough time there, that has to be communicated to them that we want to hear feedback from all. And I think it is enough time, but we don't want to leave the impression that we didn't listen to them or didn't give them the opportunity. So that's important.
Certainly we'll leave that in the capable hands of Councillor Grant, in addition to the previous email. Perfect. Okay, so at third reading then, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we'll consider adoption of the earliest then 2 weeks time. And also for the companion bylaw to do with the reserve fund, bylaw 1708 for third reading.
I'll move that recommendation.
Okay.
And any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Alrighty then, moving on to special reports, we have for receipt the minutes of the hospital board meeting and the solid waste meetings held on January 16th at the regional district level.
Move receipt of both.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion on receipt? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Anything arising? Seeing none, we'll move on. New business. Then we have at page 31 regarding the development permit application BP 11-13. 62 Orchard Park Drive. The planner's recommendation is that development permit be issued upon resolution of outstanding item and also subject to the BP conditions listed in Schedule 1 of this report.
I'll move that.
Second.
Seconder, further discussion. Councillor Fletcher and Price.
So just further to the conversation regarding the archaeological survey, the applicant is responsible for that. Do they then forward that document directly to KFN, or does it come through our office and then we forward it?
CEO or planner has his hand up?
They forward it directly to the ministry, and then the ministry may have protocols with different bands in terms of informing bands and how they relate to bands. But the actual regulations requirement is a provincial requirement. So we may get notified, as in this case, as a courtesy of what the contents are, but we don't have the jurisdiction to enforce those requirements. It's strictly provincial requirement.
Okay. Councillor Price.
Yes, I must admit, I was concerned when I read the comments from the Comox First Nation, and they certainly have concerns about this development going ahead. I don't know whether there are any other options in the location that would satisfy their concerns about agriculture and the list of concerns that they express. We know that we can't sterilize the land, that it is a residential zoning. I don't know if the planner has any comments on if we can meet any of these concerns, or how can we?
Certainly, I can go through the concerns.
Thank you.
Your Worship, wish.
Yes, go ahead, please.
The first, in regards to a variance to the guidelines, there are no variances to the guidelines being proposed. I think the terminology is just a little off there. What happens is there's best management practices that come out from the Ministry of Environment. And our development permit is structured such that if those best management practices, which are global, so they don't look at site specifics, they're trying to capture everything. What was a worst case scenario? If you meet those best management practices, then you're out. You don't need a development permit. If for some reason you can't meet the best management practices, then you're required to get a professional biologist to look at the specifics of the site and the specifics of the nest to determine that there's no degradation of eagle nest habitat. which is what's happened in this case. So it's triggered the development permit requirement. Those guidelines require the RP Bio report, and that the RP Bio look at a number of things, habitat. So that report that's in the package does address things, does address those issues. It does make note that the site area where the house is proposed is a fully altered site area. It's essentially where the old house and the old outbuildings used to be. So there's no or very marginal impact on any native or any vegetation beyond lawn. And as it notes, eagles are very adaptive to different situations. I remember seeing an eagle nest there's an eagle nest in Stanley Park right underneath the tennis courts. People playing tennis. What they're not, what they're very sensitive to is a change in that habitat. So in regards to this proposal, it's replacing what was there, which is a single family dwelling. So just to recap that, the best management practices are global. Otherwise, you have to do a site-specific analysis, which is what has been done in this case. If the development permit's issued in accordance with staff recommendations, the site development would have to adhere to those recommendations from the RP file. Two development permit areas that are also mentioned in their submission. The marine foreshore only extends, it is the foreshore, so it extends to the natural boundary. There is no proposal to do any alterations or connections to the natural boundary, other than what may exist, maybe an existing storm drain that extends. The riparian area is 30 meters back from Brooklyn Creek. There is no proposal to do any land alteration within that. That's why no development permit is triggered. So they're not doing any works within that area. One of the conditions that we do have to ensure that no works occur in that the 30-meter boundary be actually snow fenced, so that when the crews go in, there's no misunderstanding if somebody hasn't been briefed that they can't go into the 30-meter riparian area. As to agricultural activities, the land is currently zoned for single-family use, which is one of our lowest density, lowest impact uses. It only allows one dwelling unit on the parcel, plus accessory buildings there too. The official community plan maintains that residential detached character. So in terms of minimizing impact, that's being addressed to the land use. And in regards to the archaeological, whenever we have a concern that there might be archaeological deposits, we do refer to the ARC branch, provincial government. Any response that we get, as we did in this case, get a response saying that there is indication of significant archaeological value on the site, and noted what would be required of the archaeological under their regulations. We do then immediately forward that to the applicant, which we did in this case. And the applicant has gotten an archaeologist. So those items are addressed.
Right. Any further questions for our planner? Councilor McKinnon?
Yeah, in the spirit of continuing good relations with Comox First Nations, will or how will answers to these concerns be communicated to them?
It's quite. We respond to their desires. So our initial referral that went out, we did note that we had a report, RP Bio report in, and if they wish to have a copy, that we would give them a copy. So responding that way. They've stated some. They've made some statements which I believe stand on their own face of it in terms of. The misunderstanding for the development permit areas where they've requested further information. We have sent a letter to the band clarifying that it's not in those two development permit areas mentioned and why. So that's our normal processes for those.
All right. Anything further? Thank you for that, Mr. Planner. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to page 53 then, we have a development permit application UP-11-08, 2277 Bedford Road, Quality Food Site. And the planner's recommendation is that development permit will be issued, subject to the development permit conditions listed in the report.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any further discussion? I would just say I'm glad to see this finally happen. I know it's been a bone of contention in the Indian neighborhood for a while, and I'm very pleased to see it come to fruition. So thank you for bringing it forward, staff and proponent. All those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, page 59 is the development variance permit application, UP 11-06, and development permit application UP 11-10 regarding 53 Cedar Avenue. Councillor Swift, I understand declaring a conflict.
Move that so she's leaving.
And so we're looking for two things. One is that the development permit be issued subject to the outstanding item listed in the report. So do that first.
I'll move that.
Second.
Move in second. Any further discussion? Councillor Fletcher.
Just a statement that I appreciate the positive aspects of this application, that they're keeping the character, they're putting the tree protection covenant on, they're minimizing or reducing the impervious and compacted surfaces. So that gives me a lot of support for the variance. I appreciate the application. Thank you.
Any further? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried, and then that the development permit be EP 11-10 be issued.
Move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. So we'll bring Councillor Swift back to the table.
Yeah.
All righty. So we'll move on then to page 69. And this is a report from the Planning Department regarding the environmental development permit issuance delegation. And before we get to the actual three readings, I'll just ask our planner to comment on this. I think it's relatively self-explanatory, just for the benefit of those in attendance. If you can just explain how we're dealing with this.
Certainly. This is a reinstatement of a delegation allowance that we had under our old official community plan. So we do have a delegation bylaw for environmental development permits. It just references our old OCP and our old development permits. So it's no longer more or less in effect. What this allows, the environmental development permits tend to be technical in nature. They're asking for an RP bio certification in the most cases. They also are a little bit unique in that almost all of our other development permits tend to catch larger projects. These ones can catch single-family homes. So, for example, Brooklyn Creek is in a development permit area that's mostly single-family dwellings going all the way up Brooklyn Creek. So, in light of that, the delegation bylaw would allow the municipal planner to issue the development permits. Built into that would be a right of appeal from the applicant. So, if the applicant is not happy with either the issuance, the conditions put on, or the denial of the development permit, they make a request. That request goes not to the municipal planner, it goes to the chief administrative officer, and there's a timeline in terms of when it comes back forward to council. So there is that safeguard in there. Also at the same time, there's if it's an extremely complex or very high public interest in a development permit, the municipal planner has the ability to say it's not appropriate for the municipal planner to review it and that it should go to council. So those safeguards are built into it.
Any further questions for our planner? Yes, Councillor Fletcher.
Chair, planner, and we can sort of keep track of these. We won't lose sight of these. These would be on your monthly reports where you show us all the activity.
Yes. Yeah, they would still register as an application. Application fee would be taken, and then they would show up in our reports.
Councillor Price.
Yes, and so these powers of delegation were available in the past, I understand, from your report.
Correct.
And did you have any problems? Did it serve the purpose? I understand the purpose is to move things ahead. If they can be moved ahead at a faster pace, then it takes those times of going to council out of the equation. Did you find that it worked well in the
Yes, it's not used very often because it's really the small projects that it's going to catch. A larger project is going to come up for rezoning or something like that, so the matter is going to go before council anyways. The one glitch was it still had under our old bylaw notification requirement that does slow things down in terms of us having to do a notice and a timeline on that. So the new bylaw removes that notification requirement for delegated permits.
And you don't have any concerns about that?
Removal?
This means that in the past neighbours have been notified, have they? And the same way as the band was notified?
No, I don't have a concern in that. We're one of the few jurisdictions in the province that has a notification requirement for development permits. It's not a statutory requirement. The concept on the statute is council has to have a public hearing in creating the development permit guidelines. And once you create the development permit guidelines, the development permit, all that's happening is the applicant is then showing how their proposal meets the guidelines that council has established and that have public review and vetting. And that's why there is no statutory requirement for it.
Thank you.
Any further? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to do bylaw 1705 for second and third reading.
Move. Second.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. And also bylaw 1704.
Move.
Second, for second and third reading. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, at page 81, we have the matter referred to us by the regional district regarding water committee assignment of votes. And I would just, for the benefit of the audience, there's 3 votes that are assigned to Comox, and we just need to allocate those between our 2 representatives. So,
I move that Councillor Fletcher be assigned 2 votes.
all right, is there a seconder for that? Any seconder?
So I was going to ask before we did that, is it appropriate, because if Tom wanted to have his name stand for the 2 votes and he's not here, does he not have to say he would take the position? I mean, I'm sure
he's already in the position, so I think it's just a matter of assigning the votes.
Well, let's pile it on him. Let's
Let's give him 6 votes.
Yeah.
So we have a motion for Councillor Fletcher to have 2 votes. And is there a second for that? Sorry, did I get a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. On that matter, discussion. So, Councillor Grant, go ahead.
Well, I was actually going to put Tom's name up, and the rationale that I had there was that as Patty's the vice chair of the regional board already, it just seemed in fairness, if we're going to split the thing up, why wouldn't we put him in the position where he has a little more weight on this? I don't really know that the weighted votes are going to play a big role in how anyone votes anyway, but
it's never been an issue till now, so.
No. But, I was going to put Tom's name up, that's all, so. And I just thought.
The water committee has got a somewhat independent status from the regional board itself. It's got its own specialty. Councillor Price.
Yes, and I didn't think it was a big issue either. I suggested Councillor Fletcher because on the regional board she carries the larger number of weighted votes and has been on the board and water committee for a while and that was the basis that I supported her carrying the greater number of weighted votes, and that still stands for me with regard to the water committee.
Any further discussion? Councilor Kevin and yourself.
Sorry, I've not been on the regional board. I follow from a distance, but my understanding is we don't have there's no choice to go to a vote and a half each then. That's not an option.
In the past, it hasn't been an issue because generally speaking, the Comox reps have voted the same way. I don't believe that that's ever been a concern. I think part of the reason this is coming up at this instance is that the vote for the chair and vice chair of that committee, it's been deemed, I guess, that there should be a weighted vote. They haven't been able to even have a formal meeting until this is resolved. Last year, when that was first applied, there was no contest for the chair, and it may be, in fact, a contest for the chair this time.
So, to clarify something, the terms then are for a year, and it's reviewed every year. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes.
Might we consider an amendment and say 2 votes 1 year and rotates the second year?
Well, what? Okay, well, we have to deal with that next year. When we deal with we'll deal with it at the time when we deal with all the appointments at the beginning of December. We didn't realize this instance that we'd have to assign.
I'll plant the seed for consideration for
Sure.
that. In any case.
That's okay.
So if I was going to put Tom's name up, would it be appropriate to do that now, or should we vote
We'd have to vote on the,
Patty and then put Tom up after? Is that how we
if
do
that
that?
motion was defeated, yes.
Okay.
The 2-vote motion in favor of the Fletcher.
Fair enough.
All right. Anything further? All right. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, and I'll vote in favor. And those opposed? One opposed. All right, and the balance of votes will go to Councillor Grant. All I can say is you better vote together. As we've done for the last 6 years that I know. In most cases, we'll see. All right, so that's dealt with in correspondence. We'll go to the regional district for the water committee. I understand you have your meeting next Tuesday. Good luck. All right, correspondence. We have Rick Gibson's letter regarding the use of Marina Park for snow surf as is typical the last Sunday of April.
So I would move receipt and that we grant his request for the park.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? Hard to believe we're thinking about that already, but it comes fast. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And speaking of a similar event that's coming up on us soon,
I would move receipt and that we grant the road closures
this is
perhaps.
for the hockey tournament downtown, same as last year.
Grant the provision.
And I've noted in the letter that they're going to close the road at 6 o'clock on Friday rather than earlier today, so that'll probably go well for businesses. Is there a seconder for that? Second. Further discussion? Councillor McKinnon and Price.
Yeah, it's just that was based on feedback we got from businesses that there was a minor inconvenience of the setup starting earlier.
Yeah, I can answer that. The first year that we did this was last year, of course, and we had no idea how long the setup was going to take to do. So we asked for the setup to start early the Friday morning. As it turned out, it was a little easier than we thought. We figured that we can actually easily pull that off if we shut the streets down as we're complying and do it the evening before, so as to let the business people continue to do with the traffic flow on the Friday afternoon. I think it'll be better for everyone, all concerned. So,
all right,
that's the rationale.
That's Price.
And I think it's almost been answered my question. I just wondered, directed to Councillor Grant, whether there was any input from the BIA. And they're happy now.
Absolutely.
Time frame.
Yep. This was at our last. This came up at our last BIA meeting, and they approved going ahead with this. And they actually are looking forward to maybe being able to get involved in more events. Maybe not including road closures, but certainly events and taking on a bigger role is something that they're looking forward to.
And I recall from last year it brought a lot of people into town. So. It could have a lot of positive spin-offs.
Yeah, it had a real big impact, especially on just notoriety. I think that's the most action we've seen in downtown in the last 200 years. So, hopefully we can repeat the success again.
All right, Councillor McKinnon.
Just a closing comment to dovetail on that is I was there and I certainly saw people and heard people that they said they didn't realize some of these stores were down here and went into stores that they wouldn't have normally. So I think that's one of the intents of council is to have events to draw customers to businesses there. And one of the businesses that was had gone in opposed to it, I know had a lot of people going to the store that didn't normally, and hopefully that may have opened that owner's eyes and see the benefit of having passed on. I think we all saw that over there. So.
Yeah. No, I think it was a great success, and I look forward to further success as it goes on. So thank you for your efforts on that, Councillor Grant. All those in favor then? Motion is carried. Reports from members of council. We'll start with Councillor Swift.
I attended my first SIR meeting last week, and then also attended the Parksville conference for 2.5 days. Very worthwhile. I'm hoping I'm going to all notice the benefits of my mitigated knowledge.
Smarter.
And I've just met with a few business owners individually regarding the park beach. So.
Great. Councilor Fletcher.
Thank you. Since we last met, I attended the strategic planning session that we held on Saturday, which I thought was a valuable session, and we got some things into the pot, and we're stirring it around, and I'm sure we'll work further on it next week. Also last week attended the sewer meeting as well with Councillor Swift, and Councillor Grant was elected the chair of the sewer committee for the coming year with Councillor Ambler, Director Ambler, and the State Councillor Courtney being the vice chair. Of course, the water committee met, but we didn't get very far with our work due to the voting issue, so we'll get back to work next week with that. The sports committee met. We elected a chair, Councillor Theos from the City of Courtney, and myself, I took the vice chair seat. And then I too attended the Parksville LGLA, the local government leadership, and very worthwhile, always learning something new, always putting another piece of the puzzle together, so I appreciate the opportunity to attend that. And another piece from the Committee of the Whole meeting in the Regional District last week, of interest, you may have read in the paper about the report on the transit expansion to Comox. So 5 direct buses between Comox and Courtney, and this is part of our transit expansion enhancement plan that the board endorsed last year. That should start operating in February. So here we are, February 1st. So we should be seeing that soon. And on the horizon is a concept of a summer beach bus. The logistics of that are yet to be worked out, but that's of interest perhaps to the community. And yesterday, the regional district, we had an all-day financial session, so we're starting to look at the financial plan. Look forward to bringing that forward. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Grant.
Well, I met with Don Stevenson regarding the Comox Cup, but she'll be happy to hear that that issue was resolved tonight. And I also was at a Discovery Center where they brought the tourism operators in and gave them the tour of the place and showed them how the bookings and things are going to work. And that was a very successful night, I believe, from all the comments that I heard. No, we didn't have a BIA meeting, so that's all I've done.
Councilor McKinnon.
Yes, I attended the first Vancouver Island Library inaugural meeting for U-Turn on last Saturday. I also attended the elected officials conference in Parksville and the strategic planning meeting with the councillors. And most important, on last Wednesday, January 25th, Robbie Burns Day, before I left for the conference in Parksville, I attended as many Robbie Burns Day functions as I could dressed in a kilt.
You were still wearing it 3 days.
You're supposed to take it off.
Councilor Price.
Yes, I attended the Comox Valley Environmental Council, and there was a very good presentation on the Blue Carbon Project, which is looking at the estuary as a carbon sink, and particularly use of eelgrass. And there was some discussion about carbon offset money that municipalities will have to pay, I think it's in 2012, and how much could be spent locally. So this is certainly a project that would benefit. I also attended the Comox Archives and Museum meeting, and the committee was very grateful for Council's decision to continue the monthly funding pending the budget process. And there's a lot of compliments being received on the new space, and attendance continues to increase. We've even seen buses coming, bringing people who go on and have lunch. I attended the strategic planning session last Saturday and the seminar down in Parksville, which was very, very helpful, and learned a lot also.
Okay, great. Well, I'll just report on a few items as well. I attended a ceremony at the Comox Legion, the unveiling of the Brewer Eichmann photo in a special place there in the Legion, and that was well attended. And if you go to the Legion, you'll see a nice framed photo that was essentially the same one that was done with that display that was going across Canada. So a nice honor there for the Eichmann family. Also attended the Vintage Wings presentation at the Spitfire hangar for the Y2K Spitfire, henceforward known as the Roseland Spitfire, named after one of the pilots who flew that in World War II. And had the pleasure of sitting next to our own Stocky Edwards, who's got one of the vintage planes having been restored in his name as well, a Kitty Hawk. So sitting next to a living legend was quite a treat. Strategic planning, as mentioned by other members of council, as well as the elected officials forum in Parksville, and I had the opportunity and pleasure of participating as apparently a veteran elected official on the mentoring panel. And looking at the participants beside me, I felt I was far too young for that, but it was enjoyable to hear some of their stories as well and to convey some of the experiences I've had. So I think that's an excellent session. Yesterday morning, I attended the breakfast put on by the Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Pat Bell was there to talk about the BC Jobs Plan and some of the initiatives ongoing. He did mention that he went to school with our own Councillor McKinnon. So I pried him for some dirt on that. He went quiet there.
Something to do with the kill,
And then also had the pleasure yesterday at 11:30 to attend the rec center and to see the Grey Cup and get the picture with the Grey Cup. It's on my BlackBerry Playbook there, so you can see it. It's all loaded up. And I do want to present to Councillor McKinnon the hat and a few autographs on a T-shirt that I got from Jamie Terrace and the quarterback Travis Luley, and also the punter kicker guy McCallum. He said that when he retires, he's going to see if you can get the job. So there you go. I know you couldn't make it due to work commitments, so I passed it on to you because I know you're one of our one of the big fans of the BC Lions. So. It was a great event. There was at least 150 people there. There's 145 photos loaded onto the Facebook page. Not all of me, but of all the football teams and kids from schools nearby. It was a great event. So well done to the Rec Commission staff for putting that on at Rec Center. And then right after that, I went off to lunch, the anniversary lunch for the Business Networking Group called Olympic Gold, and I did provide some remarks on behalf of the town and the other mayors to congratulate them on their 10th anniversary of that group and talk about some of the initiatives that our councils have been looking at in terms of downtown vitalization and economic development. So that was a pleasure to be part of that. We have the one late item then for consideration, and that is Councillor Price has brought forward a request that she be considered for appointment to the Comox Valley Cycling Task Force. It wasn't appointment. We did deal with the meeting in December because Councillor Fletcher wasn't able to do it. So Councillor Price has offered her name. So a motion to that effect would be.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Media. Oh, sorry.
I just want to ask one question. With regard to the first delegation,
yes,
and their request for support for the resolution, I don't know what the council has done in the past with requests of this nature. I know we don't deal with them when the delegation is here.
Well, I guess in the normal course, we would ask staff to bring a report back to us. Talk about perhaps some of our own procurement policies. I don't believe we have, for example, a local preference in our procurement. I know this issue also came up during the TILMA discussions, Trade Investment Labor Mobility Agreement with Alberta. But staff would consider that and bring it back to us for further consideration at a subsequent meeting. And I do imagine that it will come forward some form or other at ABICC, whether it's through us or through another municipality. So, would that be in order, CA?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Seeing none, any media questions at this time?
Just want to clarify as to the issue that was just brought up. So is staff going to come back with a report on that?
Yeah, staff would bring it back to either a committee of the whole or a council meeting. Probably, if it was committee of the whole, it would be in about 3 weeks. Yes, because next week's committee of the whole is canceled, and we'll have a council meeting in 2 weeks, but then committee of the whole will be the earliest we can pop back.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe the deadline for resolutions to ABICC is about the 24th of this month. So.
What is the
sorry, the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. It's the conference. There'll be a conference in Ucluelet on April 13th through 15th, and resolutions of this type could be brought to that before they're brought to UBCM, although it would appear that UBCM has already had such a resolution, as well as the FCM, which is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It was in early June in Saskatoon. So there you have it. Any further? No, thank you. Okay, any questions from members of the public at this time? Okay, we have no in-camera meetings, so a motion to adjourn would be in order. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Jump at once.
Meeting adjourned.
Just in time for coronation.